3 spine-chilling cabin in the woods horror tales. Terrifying secrets revealed after 10 years, the Millers thought they were escaping the weight of the world with a weekend retreat in a cozy cabin. But they had no idea the dark secrets lurking in those woods would soon turn their relaxation into terror. As they drove down the winding road leading to their rustic getaway, the pale light of dusk crept in, casting long shadows that danced like specters around the trees. Little did they know that their trip would mark the beginning of a nightmare they'd never forget. Tom Miller, protective and hardworking, felt an unsettling chill roll down his spine as his family unloaded the car. He could hear whispers of the town's recent rise in crime echoing in his mind. Had they locked the doors too tightly? Adrenaline spiked as his gaze drifted to the forest edge, where claw-like branches swayed ominously. Lock the doors tightly, he reminded everyone, though a knot tightened in his stomach. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding as they unpacked. Emma and Jake, full of energy, darted away to explore their surroundings, laughter echoing off the trees. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, an eerie silence fell over the cabin. Shadows grew longer and darker, and the children scurried back, eyes wide with apprehension. "Dad, can we check out the attic?" Emma asked, the thrill of discovery glimmering in her gaze as the kids climbed up creaky stairs. The attic revealed a trove of dusty memorabilia. They coughed through clouds of dust that spun in the slivers of fading light. Old photographs lined the room, faces of previous owners with hollow gazes. Each portrait seemed to tell a story, a history steeped in local folklore. The haunting tales spoke of the Watcher, a tragic guardian twisted by despair, who wandered the woods, preying on families. "Mom, look at this," Jake shouted, shoving an old newspaper clipping at her. Lisa's heart raced. She felt the stories creeping under her skin like ice. Before they could fully grasp the weight of what they had discovered, darkness unfurled its cloak beyond the cabin walls. The once innocent excitement transformed into a shiver of anticipation. Tom tried to brush off the rising dread, but moments later, a sharp knock rattled their door. Silence engulfed them, thick and suffocating. They exchanged panicked glances, hearts pounding. The air around them felt electric. "Stay here," Tom told the family as he cautiously approached the door, each footstep echoing with uncertainty. The stillness outside pressed heavy against him. He opened it to find nothing but an unnatural chill, almost alive in its presence. Goosebumps erupted on his arms as he shut the door, the grip of fear tightening around them like a vice as they settled in for a board game. The faint crack of twigs outside sent their hearts racing. Emma squeezed Jake's hand. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Before Tom could respond, the power flickered, then plunged them into darkness. Panic surged. His phone was useless, no signal. The children huddled closer, whispering about shadows beyond the cabin. With a snapping noise that echoed around them, Tom could feel the hairs on his neck stand on end. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue with the darkness pressing in. A scratching sound began against the walls. Tom's mind spiraled into sheer panic. He'd never felt so vulnerable. The children's whispers merged with eeriness, blurring the line between the folklore they'd heard and their terrifying reality. Anxiety clawed at their throats as a figure began to emerge from the moonlit forest, edging closer. "Help me," a haunting voice echoed through the stillness, chilling them to the bone. Tom's breath caught in his throat as dread infiltrated their safe haven. They had come seeking solace, yet they stood on the precipice of horror, trapped in a nightmare that had just begun. As the voice lingered in the air, the Millers felt a chill snake down their spines. Tom's heart raced. Every instinct screamed at him to protect his family, but fear had taken root in him, paralyzing his legs. The voice was soft yet desperate, pulling them closer to the door, as if it carried the weight of unspeakable pain. "Help me," it repeated, slithering around them like smoke. Emma's eyes were wide with terror, and Jake's grip on her hand tightened. The darkness felt more alive now, like it were watching, waiting for their next move. Tom forced himself to look out the window. The moon cast a ghostly glow on the trees. He could see a figure now, a silhouette cloaked in shadows, swaying gently as if caught in the wind. What little light there was flickered like a dying flame, revealing glimpses of fearsome features. He needed to make a decision. "We can't open the door," he hissed, rallying his voice to hold steady. "Could be dangerous. It's just an illusion. I'm sure of it. Dad." Emma's voice broke through the rising tide of anxiety. "What if someone really needs help?" Her eyes glistened with tears. Jake, too, looked unconvinced. Tom turned to Lisa, searching for support. Her expression mirrored his fears. "We need to stay inside, Tom," she urged, her voice shaky. But the scratching on the walls grew louder now, almost insistent, like a child calling for their parent. The cabin creaked ominously, each noise crafting a powerful whisper of warning. With a heavy heart, Tom stepped back towards the gathering shadows, trying to shield his family with his body. "We're not opening that door," he said firmly, but the fear gnawed at him. It was as if whatever was out there had latched onto their vulnerability, drawing nearer with each passing moment. The scratching morphed into something else. It began to echo the sound of fingernails skimming against wood. A frantic rhythm, relentless and petrifying. "It's coming from everywhere," Jake whimpered, eyes darting from wall to wall, searching for escape. Suddenly, the power flickered back on. Light illuminated the room in a harsh, unnatural glare. Breathlessly, they looked around. Everything appeared normal until they noticed that in the corner, beside the beaten couch and an old armchair, there was something new. A child-sized shadow stood perfectly still, a gaping void where its face should be, a grotesque mockery of innocence. Tom blinked, and the figure was gone, as if swallowed by the cabin itself. "Did you see that?" Emma gasped, voice barely above a whisper. "What are we supposed to do?" Jake's words tumbled out in a rush. Panic pooled in the corners of Tom's mind, mixing with disbelief. There was something wrong with this place. Every fiber of his being urged him to run, yet they were trapped. The child's voice returned, this time infiltrating their thoughts rather than their ears. "Find me, help me, you must enough." Tom screamed, grounding himself again. He turned to his family, desperate to rally them. "We need to stick together. We'll lock the doors and barricade them. Maybe we can wait until the morning." But before they could react, the door rattled violently, shaking like it was about to burst open. A breathless gasp escaped from Lisa, and the children screamed in unison. The thick wood creaked and trembled, and the scratching intensified, morphing into clawing like something tried to claw its way in. An overwhelming scent of decay seeped through the gaps, and the air became tangibly cold. "Please," the voice begged again, yet this time it seemed to come right from within the cabin, echoing in their minds. Tom's courage crumbled like brittle leaves in autumn. "Call for help, no, it's a trap." And in that moment of utter despair, a loud bang erupted from the attic, shaking the very foundation of their retreat. The stairs groaned under the weight of something climbing down. What was that? Lisa's voice trembled, eyes wide. Tom felt the icy grip of terror tightening around his throat. "We need to know what's up there." As the thundering footsteps grew louder, Tom's heart raced with a conflicting blend of dread and an unshakable curiosity. Clenching his fists, he made a decision in that heartbeat. They couldn't sit here and wait anymore. The answers awaited them, but would they be ready for the truth lurking in the shadows? And as they dared to move towards the attic, the air thickened, and something whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." The attic stairs creaked and groaned under the weight of Tom's trembling hands as he pushed the door open. The hinges protested, releasing a shuddering moan that echoed in the dense quiet of the room. Dust motes danced in the silvery moonlight streaming from the small attic window, illuminating shapes that twisted in the dark. Every instinct told him to turn back, to retreat into the fragile safety of the cabin below. Lisa's back pressed against his. Her silent plea for him to stay put evident in her wide, terrified eyes. Jake and Emma clung to each other, their small forms shaking with fear. Tom took a shaky breath, mingling the musty air with hope and dread. "Stick together," he whispered. Though uncertainty gnawed at him, he stepped forward, each footfall sending a tremor through the old boards. The attic was cluttered, remnants of a forgotten life scattered across the floor. Broken furniture, a child's stuffed toy, and boxes overflowing with dust. In the far corner, where darkness clung like a living thing, something stirred. "Help me," the voice whispered, this time piercing through the shadows with a chilling clarity. "Stop it," Tom shouted, adrenaline igniting a spark of anger. "You're not real. This is all in our heads." But doubt seeped through his words like the lingering scent of decay that dulled the air. Each pulse in his neck throbbed with the agonizing uncertainty of their situation. He could feel Lisa's breath quicken behind him, their children clutching tighter to each other as the voice crescendoed into desperate cries for help. That's when he saw a shadow dart up against the slant of the roof. It moved with frantic energy, slithering out of sight just as quickly as it appeared. "Did you see that?" Emma's voice trembled, barely audible. "Stay here," Tom instructed, edging toward the corner, heart hammering as he descended deeper into the darkness. Shadows emerged like long arms stretching toward him, petty reminders of the lurking danger that seemed to flourish in these oppressive walls. He reached into one of the boxes, his fingers brushing against something warm and sticky. "Dad!" Jake's cry pierced through the chill enveloping them. "Get away from there!" Tom turned his head sharply, trying to shake off the unease that lodged itself deep within him. "It's just a box," he said, but uncertainty echoed back to him. He could feel Lisa's hand finding his arm in the dimness, her grip tight as if sensing an unseen threat. "Please," the voice whined again, dripping with despair. It wafted through the attic like a thin mist, curling around them, urging them to come closer. "Help me find me," he felt paralyzed. The shadows danced wickedly, daring him to step forward, daring him to face the truth that lay buried in the dark. "Is there someone up here with us?" Tom found himself muttering, looking around as if expecting an answer to emerge from the wood. Then, the room jolted. A crash echoed beneath their feet, reverberating up to the attic like a rumble of thunder. The walls seemed to pulse, the shadows twisting and stretching almost eagerly. An ancient sense of outrage surged through Tom, igniting his protective instincts. "We need to leave now." But even as he said it, the voice coiled tighter around them, weaving its cold tendrils into their minds. "You can't go," it hissed with an unmistakable frenzy, filling the air with a dreadful urgency. "You must know the truth before it's too late." Real dread churned in Tom's gut as the shadows danced and merged. They could see a distinct shape forming now, a child, elongated and twisted, arms stretching out desperately in invitation or warning. "Run!" Tom yelled. With every ounce of courage, he pulled Lisa, Jake, and Emma toward the stairs, but the room began to tremble. The dust and humidity crawled around them, suffocating. The child's voice became a cacophony of screams in their heads, enveloping them in its chilling embrace. "You shouldn't have come here." With his heart pounding in his chest, Tom glanced back. The creature stood waiting, shadows pooling at its feet, eyes wide and pleading. "Father," it whispered like a lament, piercing through. And just as they reached the door, a blinding cold swept over them, freezing them in place. The last thing Tom heard was the anguished cry of his family mingling with the voice waiting for their answer. "What have we awakened?" They stood, trapped between the urgency of their escape and a dark truth they could not ignore. Tom felt an icy grip tightening around his heart. The world spun, and for a moment he lost touch with reality. Staring wide-eyed at the creature, he felt the whispers crawl into his mind, each word chafing against the edges of his sanity. The child's form twisted in the shadows, a haunting specter that begged for recognition. Something within him urged him to remember, but the weight of dread kept the memories locked away. "Father," it murmured again, a hint of longing weaving through its plaintive cry. "Please, let us go." Lisa urged, her voice breaking through the thick haze that engulfed them. The urgency in her tone yanked Tom back. He steeled himself, somehow finding the strength to break free from the icy grasp that he turned. The door just a breath away, but it felt like a mile. "We need to get downstairs," he shouted, pushing down every single instinct that told him to look back. He felt Jake's small hand slip into his, the warmth grounding him for a fleeting second. Just as he laid his hand on the doorknob, the room shook violently again. The walls trembled as if alive, groaning under the weight of despair they held inside. The whispers crescendoed, spiraling into an uproar, filling the attic with a cacophony of unintelligible cries that rattled his bones. "Don't listen to it. Don't look back," Tom yelled, fear igniting fires of determination. They stumbled through the door, spilling out into the narrow stairwell. Then, in an instant, the light from the attic flickered, casting long shadows like fingers reaching out to pull them back. Just as Tom stepped onto the landing, he heard a sharp cry from Emma. "Look!" Tom's heart plummeted as he turned. The doorway flickered ominously, and for a brief second, he saw the creature there, not in shadow, but in sudden brilliance, its features sharp and cold as ice. They were framed against the dim light, eyes wide and glinting with unfathomable sadness. "You have to help me," it cried, and the desperation echoed off every wall. "No, we can't," Lisa shrieked, panic breaking her composure. Tom caught the glimmer of fear in those wide eyes, and it mirrored his own. They had to keep moving. The dimness of the cabin enveloped them as they hurried down the stairs, but the air felt thick and stifling. Each breath tasted metallic, filled with fear. Just as they reached the bottom, a deafening thud thundered above them, as if the attic itself were collapsing under the weight of its secrets. "Tom!" Jake whimpered, his small voice trembling. "What is it?" Then, as if answering him, the back of the cabin exhaled with split and splintered, an unseen force forcing its way into their reality. Shadows writhed at the edges of their vision, crawling along the walls and merging into dark shapes that threatened to devour them whole. "Run!" Tom shouted without thinking. Adrenaline surged through his veins like fire as they darted into the main room. Struggling against terror, he grabbed the flashlight, its beam wavering as his hands shook. "What do we do?" Lisa gasped, searching his face for answers. We need to find a way out. We need to leave this place." The walls shuddered again, and the darkness pressed in closer. Closing his eyes briefly, Tom heard the childish voice once more, a soft, pleading whisper that echoed chills down his spine. "Help me find the others." With renewed resolve, they reached for the door leading outside, but their hope was cruelly stifled. The lock clicked shut, as though the cabin itself had decided it would not let them leave. "No!" he cried, slamming his fists against the wooden door. "Let us out." The whispers melded into a chorus, a haunting melody of lives lost in this very place. They were being drawn back, the air thickening with dread as the very house protested their escape, and with that thought, something shattered in the air, echoing like thunder. The entire cabin shook violently, and the walls seemed to gleam with malicious intent. The shape of the child loomed in the doorway, a ghostly image wrapped in shadows. "You have to help me." Tom staggered backward, a chill seeping through his bones. They were surrounded, and whatever was hunting them was no longer satisfied with lurking in the dark shadows. In that moment, he realized the truth. They were not just trapped in a cursed cabin. They were entangled in a horror of their own making. As the shadows closed in, the last words echoed in his mind. "What have we done to deserve this?" With their lives hanging in the balance, Tom suddenly understood the past had come back, and the children in the attic were far from innocent. The silence was deafening, but he knew one thing for sure. They had only just begun to uncover the horrors hidden in the walls of this cursed place. But the final revelation awaited them, lurking just beyond the shadows, hungry for their secrets. The cabin creaked, the wood groaning like a living thing. Tom stepped back, heart racing. "We can't stay here." He grabbed Jake's arm, pulling him close. Lisa's breath was ragged, the fear in her eyes mirroring his own. The whispers surged again, swirling around them. "Help me find them." The voice was closer now. The air thickened, wrapping around them like a noose. Tom felt suffocated, the walls of the cabin pressing in. A claustrophobic nightmare. "Is it her? The child?" Emma whispered, casting nervous glances over her shoulder, as if expecting to see the thing hovering just out of sight. "What does she want?" "I don't know," Tom snapped, the panic rising in his throat. "But we can't listen. We need to keep moving." He turned toward the door again, but the lock seemed to taunt him, a cold metallic laugh in the silence. "No," he groaned, slamming his palm against it. The wood felt living and restless beneath his touch, as if it wanted to pull him in rather than let him go. Lisa backed away, her breathing quickening. "What if this is a mistake? What if we're meant to be here?" Tom shot her a glance. "Meant to be here? Are you kidding? Look at this place. It's a trap." The silence pressed. Then, a whisper slithered through the cracks. "Father, help me." It sent icy tendrils around Thomas' spine, visceral and real. He could almost feel the damp chill of the child's breath on his neck. "Shut up. Just shut up," he shouted, but deep down, pieces of his mind were starting to unravel. Memories of forgotten smiles, little hands reaching up to him, wasted moments swirling like autumn leaves, fragile, yet tantalizing. Emma touched his arm, eyes wide with concern. "We have to remember, right? There's something we need to unlock. What if she's waiting for us to know? We have to leave." The urgency erupted from him, raw and desperate. The weight of the past bore down, thundering in his ears. He turned, eyes darting for an escape, but every path seemed consumed by shadows. Suddenly, an otherworldly wail erupted from the depths of the cabin. It made his blood run cold and sent them scrambling back. The walls pulsated, and the shadows writhed with a life of their own, twisting into grotesque figures that danced in tandem with the terror. "Get back!" Tom shouted, holding up the flashlight, its beam flickering wildly like a strobe in a nightmarish carnival. "We need to find something to break the door. Anything." "Wait," Lisa cried, pointing toward the mantel where several old tools lay. "What about those? Grab them." He lunged forward, desperate. As the others scrambled, the child's figure flashed again in the corner of Tom's eye, watching him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. "Help me, please." "Stop looking at her." Tom wheeled around, an overwhelming need to protect blaring in his head. "We can't. She's not real." "Tom, listen." Lisa's voice broke through chaos. "If she knows something, we can't ignore it. She's one of us." He froze. For one horrifying second, doubt crept in, gnawing on his resolve. What if the whispers were right? Would unlocking the past save them, or drag them deeper into the abyss? Just then, a loud crack resonated through the cabin, like a whip cutting through air. An unnatural force slammed against the door, vibrating with raw energy. The windows rattled, shuddering under the pressure, as the shadows surged towards them. "Do it now," Tom screamed. "We don't have time." The echoes of the child's plea swelled around them, and with a shared breath, they charged towards the tools, hands shaking as they grasped the rusted metal. But before they could break free, the ground shook violently underfoot, and the walls screamed as if the spirits inside were awakening. "Help me find the others." The words clawed at Tom's sanity that I end that dissonant moment. He felt a strange pull, like fingers gripping his heart. What were they truly running from? What was fate really trying to tell him? As the cabin erupted with a deafening roar, dark figures lunged for them amidst piercing cries and unearthly moans, ready to reclaim the secrets they had sought to. Silence, and then, in the maelstrom, something cold brushed against his skin, followed by an understanding that chilled him deeper than the darkness ever could. What if the others didn't want to be found at all? The shadows were thickening, swirling, preparing to swallow them whole. They were caught, and in that moment, Tom realized they were not just fighting for escape but for the remnants of their very souls. What had they awakened in this cursed place? The answer lay beyond the shadows, and whether they could uncover it in time was a truth they might not live to tell. The shriek of the wall's anguish still echoed in Tom's ears, but it was nothing compared to the horror unfolding before them. Shadows coiled tighter, their forms shifting like smoke, threatening to consume everything in their path. As the dark figures lunged forward, their features became grotesque, stretching and warping in the flickering light. A cacophony of whispers rose, a tide of voices crying out in desperation. "Help us find them now!" Tom shouted, raising the rusted pickaxe high, ready to bring it down on the door. The metallic clang rang through the air, startling a flock of birds that erupted from the trees outside, their cries mingling with the wailing of the cabin. Each blow felt like a plea to the spirits trapped within. "Keep hitting it," Jake shouted, his face pale, terror-stricken but determined. Yet the door held steadfast, unyielding as if mocking their efforts. The air throbbed with dark energy, swirling around them and tugging at their limbs. Tom's heart thundered wildly in his chest as the reality of their situation crashed down on him. What did they awaken? What price would they pay for answers? This wasn't just a cabin. It was a prison, a cursed sanctuary for something that thrived on fear and despair. Emma's hands trembled as she clutched a broken hammer and swung it at a shadow, her terror translating into reckless fury, drawing their foes' attention. "What if we're the ones they want?" she gasped, utterly lost. "Shut up," Tom snapped, but his voice faltered. Those words echoed a terrifying truth. They were trapped, and the door was not just a barrier. It was a threshold between their reality and a nightmare that threatened to swallow them whole. In that instant, a cold draft snaked through the air, caressing his neck with a chill that made his skin crawl. "Help me please," the voice, clearer now, sent an electric shock through Tom's soft, almost innocent, yet soaked with pain and longing. "No, don't listen," he screamed, slamming the pickaxe into the wooden door with renewed rage. "Nothing. What do we do?" He shouted. Lisa, wide-eyed and shaking, dropped to her knees beneath the weight of dread. "What if staying means we can help her? Maybe we're her only chance." "Are you out of your mind?" Tom snapped back, panic rising. The shadows were surging closer, creeping like smoke around Lisa, their whispering calls increasing in intensity. "This is how they trap you. Don't fall for it." But doubt gnawed at his mind. What if the child was real? What if they could save her? The struggles of the past collided with the urgency of survival in a tangled mess inside Tom. The ground pitched violently once more, and black tendrils lashed out, swirling dangerously close. The air crackled with energy, thick and suffocating. "Get up," Jake yelled, grabbing Lisa's arm and yanking her to her feet. "We need to go now." As they fumbled for the remaining tools, the darkness around them began to pulse, morphing into shapes that clawed at Tom's sanity. "Find the others, help me." The wall shuddered, revealing flashes of memories, faces twisted in anguish, echoing laughter that warped into screams. Tom gripped the axe tighter. "We have to break down the door." But before he could swing again, a piercing scream resonated from one corner of the cabin, freezing them in place. The figure of the child flickered before him, trapped and pleading, her eyes wide with fear, hauntingly familiar. "Tom," she whispered, and for a moment, clarity washed over him. It wasn't just the cabin. It was the past they buried that begged to resurface. With a sudden burst of clarity, he realized their choice was not just about escaping. It was about facing what they had avoided for so long. "Fight! Hold on!" he roared, rallying them forward. "On three, we hit the door together." As their voices mingled in fierce determination, shadows coalesced, and an icy breath whispered over them. "You won, T. Escape." Not until you know. But before he could comprehend the weight of those words, the ground twisted again, and with a collective effort, they swung their weapons against the door. It cracked, and then the shadows surged forward anew, ready to reclaim their lost souls. As the door splintered, a deep, growling voice boomed through the chaos. "What lies beyond is worse than any nightmare you've ever known." With every ounce of strength, the door began to give way. And beneath the echoes of the past, Tom suddenly wondered, what if the nightmare had already begun? As the threshold trembled, a sliver of darkness broke free, and he braced for the truth that awaited them on the other side. What had they really unleashed? The door shuddered violently, cracking further, and a fetid odor oozed from the splintered wood, an overwhelming scent of decay that clawed at their nostrils. Tom's heart raced, racing against the impending calamity that hovered with a palpable, sinister energy. "Push!" Jake shouted, his voice a whip crack through the blaring chaos surrounding them. They shoved against the door, and the wood screeched as it yielded to their combined effort. As if released from a long-held breath, it swung open with a violent crash, splintering into pieces that scattered like broken promises. Darkness spilled into the cabin, swirling like a storm. The shadows wailed, their howls curling around the group, wrapping tightly and squeezing the air from their lungs. "You shouldn't have come here," echoed around them, a chorus of despair wrenched from those forever lost. Tom staggered back, eyes wide as he tried to comprehend what lay beyond. His stomach churned as shapes danced just beyond the entrance, ghastly figures that loomed with hollow eyes and twisted smiles, embodying pain and sorrow. The figure of the child flickered again, standing at the threshold, beckoning him with a pale, trembling hand. "Tom, please," she pleaded, but her voice was no longer innocent. It coiled around him with bitterness, scraping against his soul. "Close it, close it," Emma shrieked, instinctively retreating, but Lisa stood firm, as if mesmerized. "Wait," she cried, staring into the depths of despair that knocked against her will. "What if she's real? Are you insane?" Tom shouted, adrenaline pumping through him. "It's a trick," but the child's cry grew more desperate. "Help me. You have to save me." Tom felt a pull, an intangible gravity that threatened to yank him into the threshold. "No, fight it," he barked, grasping Lisa's arm tightly. Her skin felt cold, as if she were already losing her fight. Suddenly, the shadowed figures screeched. "You can't escape your fate," they clamored, their voices overlapping in a deafening roar. The floor beneath them trembled as if alive, splintering at the edges, the cabin itself protesting their presence. "Back away," Jake yelled, dropping his tool and throwing himself against the wall as the darkness surged toward them. But it was too late. Tendrils of shadow lashed out, snaking around Lisa's ankles, pulling her toward the threshold. She clawed at the floor, her screams echoing in the horror-stricken air, each cry igniting their resolve to pull her back. Tom lunged, grasping her wrist with both hands. "Hang on," he shouted, straining against the shadows that tugged with relentless force. Her eyes widened with terror as the very essence of the darkness whispered her name, the shadows announcing their victory. In a moment of visceral panic, Tom yanked hard, muscles screaming, and finally, with one desperate effort, she broke free from the shadow's grasp. But the creature behind her hissed. "You think you've won?" This S&T over the wall behind the now visible void pulsed with a life of its own, exuding a low hum that vibrated in Tom's bones, rattling his mind. The child's charming face distorted into the flickering image of lost souls trapped within those walls, their agony seeping through in waves, palpable and RW. In that instant, Tom glanced sideways, and dread welled up as he felt another presence behind him. Not the shadows, but something worse. Looming in the dim light, a massive dark silhouette emerged, shifting and heaving like a storm. "What is that?" Emma gasped, breath hitching, eyes saucer-wide. "I don't know," Tom replied, voice barely a whisper, but he felt the dread claw at his throat, tightening like a noose. Then the figure spoke, deep and menacing. "You wish to escape? You will first have to confront the horrors you've forgotten." The weight of those words weighed heavy in the air, charged with an electric terror. Tom's mind raced. What did they forget? What awaited them in that relentless darkness? And as the shadows condensed around them, Tom felt the barrier between memory and nightmare blurred. Knowing they hadn't just opened a door but a gate to something monstrous, something that would haunt them far beyond this night. In the distance, laughter echoed, a thin, haunting sound that sent shivers down his spine. What have we truly unleashed? As the darkness enveloped them, a heartbeat echoed, rhythmic and sinister, thrumming against their chests as if warning them of a coming revelation. The air inside the cabin thickened. Each breath felt like inhaling fog. Shadows twisted and writhed, as if anticipating a feast upon their fear. Tom and his friends stood huddled together, a fragile defense against the abyss that drew nearer. What do we do? Emma's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. Her wide eyes darted around the room, searching for escape. Tom swallowed hard, keeping a tight grip on Lisa's arm. We have to find a way out. The murmur of the crowd behind them receded into the shadows. The silhouette loomed larger, the contours of its face twisting into a grotesque smirk. No escape, only memories. What does that mean? Jake shouted, desperation spilling into his voice. He paced, restless, his hands balled into fists. Confront what you buried, the figure rasped, its voice echoing with a timbre that felt like nails on a chalkboard. Face your past. Tom's heart ached as fragments of his childhood flickered like old film reels in his mind. Forgotten names, lost faces, a heavy weight of guilt wrapped tightly around his chest. Dark memories clawed at his thoughts, scenes from a summer-long thought buried. Lisa's whisper broke through the turmoil. What if it's right? What if we really did forget something terrible? No, he shook his head, but doubt swirled around him like the shadows. All he could see was the specter of the child, her pale hand still beckoning him forward. It's a trick. They're trying to tear us apart. The figure stepped closer, shadows pooling at its feet like black oil. It's not just about you, Tom. It's about the lies you've woven to hide your failures, your cowardice. Shut up, Tom yelled, his voice laced with panic. He felt the room pulse, the structure alive with whispers of the damned. Each one tore at his resolve, burrowing into the frail barrier of courage he clung to. Suddenly, hands reached out from the shadows, grasping and clawing, pulling at their clothes, their sanity. They writhed and pulled as if alive, each touch cold and clammy. Tom's breath quickened. He felt Lisa's grip slip. No, help me, she cried, fighting against the grip of unseen hands. Fight it, Tom shouted, desperation pooling in his stomach. Don't let it take you. But it was too late. Lisa's scream echoed, reverberating through the cabin as she fell to her knees. The darkness pulsed and crested, swallowing her further into its pit. Let her go. Jake lunged forward, but the darkness wrapped around him, constricting his movement, dragging him backward. Tom. He felt his heart hammering away like a drum against bone, racing against an overwhelming tide of shadows. I want to leave you. But the deeper shadows enveloped him, cold fingers curling around his throat, choking his voice. The weight of forgotten memories crashed against him, faces of those he should have protected, spiraling into the void. Embrace the truth, Tom, the figure taunted, its laughter mingling with the plaintive cries of those lost. Your past does not forget nor forgive. With desperation clawing at his heart, he forced himself to focus, fighting against the tide that sought to drown him. Fighting to remember. A flicker of light cut through the shadows, the image of a cabin, his childhood sanctuary. A game, a laugh. But then the laughter twisted and turned, morphed into cries for help, and suddenly the memories became heavy stones in his chest. Tom. Emma's voice jolted him back. We need to fight. Together. Together. And as if sensing a change in the air, the shadows recoiled, eyes locking onto Tom like ravenous beasts. They hungered for despair, waiting for him to shatter. Could he confront the truths they had buried beneath layers of shame and fear? Just remember, the figure snarled, the past will always find you. Always. And then silence. Everything froze as if the darkness itself held its breath, waiting to see what they would do next. There, in the quiet, the echo of the heartbeat returned, louder, more insistent. What horror awaited them when the shadows finally decided to speak? Tom's heart thundered in his chest, drowning out the deafening silence. Shadows seemed to sway, alive with malice, as the figure's smirk widened, sharp teeth glinting in the faint light. Fear twisted in his gut. He had to act. Stay close, he shouted, forcing the words out through trembling lips. He felt Emma's hand grasp his, a reluctant anchor in the encroaching darkness. The figure shifted, moving closer, its presence suffocating. You think you can escape? You think your memories are safe? They're already here, waiting. Tom's breath hitched. The memories, he could feel them, fragments echoing deep within him. Focus on something, anything else, he yelled, desperation pouring into every syllable. Tom. Emma's voice broke through the haze. What about the old tree? The one near the river? The name triggered a rush. The old oak where they had carved their names, where laughter had danced as freely as the sun on water. But memories of that place twisted darkly. A scream he couldn't forget. The vision of a friend long gone. Unable to escape the rising tide of anguish, Tom forced himself to lock his gaze on Emma. Yes, the tree. We need to go there. The shadows rippled, offended by their resolve. They pushed closer, pulling at the edges of their courage, trying to drag them back into the past. You cannot outrun the truth, the figure hissed, sounding almost wounded. You think you can erase what you did? Tom clenched his jaw, stepping forward, pulling Emma with him. We're not afraid of you. With that proclamation, a low growl emanated from the figure. The shadows writhed, creeping around Tom, intent on squeezing the breath from him. He pushed through, fighting against the tide, dragging Emma behind. They stumbled together, feeling the weight of cold fingernails inching closer to their throats. Hurry! Jake's voice echoed, desperate as he fought to break away from the dark grip suffocating him. To the door. We can make it. Tom's mind raced. If they could just reach the door, the trap could snap shut behind them. If they could just embrace your failures. The figure bellowed, sending a wave of icy fear crashing over them. You cannot escape the shadows of your past. Shut up, Tom yelled, anger surging through him like fire. It was an accident, a mistake. Then why do you still run? The figure's eyes glimmered, taunting. Why do you hide? Suddenly, a spark flickered deep within him. He remembered everything that had happened that summer. Forgotten truths he hadn't wanted to face. What he had done or hadn't done. Tom. Emma's plea brought him back. Now, with all his strength, he pulled Emma and ran toward the door as the shadows snapped at their heels. The voices grew louder, shrill whispers echoing their deepest fears and regrets, drowning in confusion and sorrow. Don't let them win, he urged Emma, his feet pounding against the wooden floor as it groaned beneath them. They reached the door, its handle barely visible through the inky darkness. Tom yanked it open, sunlight flooding the cabin. But ahead lay the twisted path leading to the old oak, the shadows closing in behind them. Run! He shouted and plunged into the light, pulling Emma along. Jake followed, a blur of movement. But as they raced down the path, the shadows slithered out from the cabin, merging together, forming a monstrous visage that loomed over them, its laughter a sinister echo. You can't escape your past. Tom's lungs burned as they sprinted, the familiar trees blurring around them. The darkness chased them like a hungry beast. Each step felt like a second chance and a death sentence all at once. Keep going, he urged, but the shadows were closing in, a relentless fog. The old oak finally came into view, its ancient branches gnarled and twisted. They pushed harder, adrenaline coursing through their veins. But then Tom's foot caught on a root, sending him tumbling forward. No! Emma screamed. The ground rushed up to meet him, and as he fell, something shifted in the air. A sharp crack echoed, and a memory rose to the surface, a voice calling from the depths. A cry for help as the shadows wrapped around him, suffocating. Tom's vision blurred with fear. What had he truly buried? The figure's laughter echoed again, dark and triumphant. Do you remember now, Tom? And then darkness swallowed him whole, the echoes of his laughter reverberating hollowly. What truth lay hidden beneath the roots, waiting to ensnare him and his friends forever? The cabin was alive with a chaos of shadow and sound, as Tom fought against the grip of the forgotten past. He could sense it closing in, every whisper clawing at his resolve. Help me please, that voice, now layered with desperation, wove around him, dizzying him. Tom. Emma's fear-laden cry broke through the fog. We have to remember. Their lives were entwined in a tangle of terror, yet shadows loomed perpetually over them, an impending doom that stretched beyond the confines of the cabin. Breathing heavy, Tom forced his eyes shut, grappling with the memories that fluttered like restless phantoms. With a surge of desperation, he pushed his thoughts through the white noise. The tree, the oak by the river. He could see its stout limbs, the sun dappling its boughs, but such joy twisted sharply in discomfort. We can't let it take us, he urged, focusing. Tom, don't look back, Jake yelled, his voice trembling but resolute. Run. Clenching his fists, Tom led them deeper into the forest, fueled by raw determination. Each step resonated with the weight of guilt dragging behind him. Memories of laughter turned into screams, vibrant colors dulled into shadows. But just as the path opened into a clearing, a deafening wail erupted from the cabin, shaking the very ground beneath them. Do not leave. You are bound to this place. It reverberated in Tom's bones, an icy grip that threatened to pull them back into the suffocating darkness. They stumbled forward, propelled by fear and urgency. A shimmer of light flickered ahead the oak. Freedom felt so close, yet the shadows were relentless. They swirled around them, wrapping tighter, mocking their desperate push toward the truth they had tried to bury. The clearing opened, the majestic oak standing proud, a stark contrast to the perils they faced. Hurry! Emma screamed, lunging forward. The shadows thrashed, a wild beast clawing at their heels. You can't forget. You cannot escape. The voice howled, echoing with the pain of forgotten souls. Tom's heart pounded as they reached the trunk of the oak, its gnarled roots sprawling like twisted fingers, beckoning. We have to confront our past, he gasped, realizing the truth was embedded in the very ground beneath them. It's not just about running, it's about remembering. He knelt, fingers digging into the fibrous earth, feeling the stories trapped below. This is where we buried our secrets, he whispered, guilt enveloping him. This is where it all began. Tom, Jake tugged his arm. What do we do? How do we free them? I don't know. The words were choked. Honesty poured out of him as memories surged. Faces of friends, haunted by lost moments, flickered through his mind. We need to face this together. As if sensing their resolve, the shadows twisted, reaching upward, clawing through the air. You think you can save them? They are yours to bear. I will not carry this guilt anymore. Tom shouted, rising to his feet, fear melting into defiance. We are not your shadows. We will no longer let you hold us. He took a deep breath, mustering every ounce of courage. We are here together, and together we can remember. At that moment, a blinding light erupted from the base of the oak, illuminating the clearing in ethereal glow. The roots quaked, and the ground pulsed with energy, as if awakening from a long slumber. Tom closed his eyes, letting the warmth envelop him. Help us remember, he murmured, grasping hands with Emma and Jake. A human chain forged of hope and recognition. Suddenly, laughter filled the air, mingling with sobs blurring the lines of past and present. Forms emerged from the light, ghostly figures of children, faces graced with innocence that had long been lost. They beckoned, eyes wide with longing, shimmering with urgency. Help us find peace. One child cried, the voice reverberating like a bell. This is your chance. Another echoed, their combined voices swirling around Tom, breaking the bind that clung tightly to their spirits. With newfound clarity, Tom realized he couldn't run any longer. He stepped forward, hand outstretched. We remember you. We will not forget. And in a single moment, the darkness erupted in displeasure, twisting and writhing as if in pain. The shadows screamed and howled, but their collective light grew brighter, engulfing the clearing in a radiant shimmer. The figures began to fade, but as they dissipated, the heaviness began to lift from Tom's heart. The shadows twisted in an anguished retreat, clawing back into the depths of the cabin, shrieking forlornly, "You'll return. You'll never forget." But Tom stood firm, the warmth suffusing him with a sense of liberation. Together, They had confronted the shadows, released the cries of the forgotten, and rewritten their story. The cabin stood ominous behind them, silent now, as if the darkness itself had been exorcised. And in that mist of relief, Tom took a breath filled with unshakable hope. "Let us go home," he whispered, a weight lifted, feeling the crisp air settle around them like a balm as they embraced the light of a new day. It dawned on them that they carried the past, but it would not define their future. Together, they had emerged from darkness a family reborn in courage, united by memories, ready to face the life ahead. Don't miss a beat. You need to subscribe now to the channel to catch the next exclusive stories waiting for you. Smash that like button now to keep the algorithm pumping out more thrilling tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this insane ending. And for the love of all that is eerie, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this concludes. This is the moment to show your support for the channel. Don't wait even one more second.